I said, hey everybody, it's time to talk some faux pod. Hey everybody, hey everybody. Hi, hey, hello, hi. Welcome back to Faux Pods with Lola. That's me, Lola. Today we're going to talk about something that is very important to me, something that is happening more and more and more, I have noticed. So I just wanted to talk about it, give some insight. But first I wanted to say that it's been a tough year again. We've had a run of tough years. I just wanted to, again, encourage everybody to stay strong, take deep breaths. Remember, we're in this together. Send my love and light and best wishes, best hopes, positivity. All of the oomph from the universe that I can muster, I send that to whoever needs it. Anyway, some of my favorite stories that were ever committed to film are 2 seasons long, maybe 4 seasons, but that had a chemistry with characters, the acting, the writing, the set design, the art design in general, the direction, all of it just plays so well together that I feel like I don't need 40 seasons. When a show will start with a bang, a fledgling show becomes the it show, and then, everyone's talking about it. There's a lot of buzz about it. There's people tweeting and blah, 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 blah. That's when things start to fizzle, in my opinion. A lot of the shows that have been on for a long time were a slow burn. The Simpsons, I think, is the longest running sitcom in history. But the first probably 8 seasons, which in my opinion are the best seasons, no one really knew about The Simpsons. When it caught on, it was probably season 13 to 15, but look at its longevity. Some could argue that it's no longer the show it was. I would be one of those people, but it's still around, it's still kicking, it's still being funded and produced. The term jumping the shark, which is what people use to refer to this type of situation, it comes from the classic TV show Happy Days, which if you don't know what Happy Days is, it's a quick Google search away, but it was kind of like the gold standard of television for its time. Potsy, Ralph, Richie Cunningham, who's the main character, and then Fonzie. Fonzie is the if you ever see someone be like, hey, that's a Fonzie reference. He was super cool, too cool for school, wore a leather jacket. He would just pop in and be awesome and leave. He was kind of a nuance of the show. It ran for 11 seasons, Happy Days. It spawned spinoffs, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, which, quick side note, Robin Williams had his acting debut on Happy Days and they were so impressed with him that they gave him his own spinoff. Sounds about right. Rest in peace, Robin. I love you. However, there was an episode called Hollywood Part 3. Apparently there was a Part 1 and 2. Fonzie is water skiing in that episode. He's in the leather jacket. He's water skiing in a leather jacket. First warning sign. And then he literally water skis over a shark. He jumps a shark, which in itself is kind of no one does that. Also, Arthur Fonzarelli would never do that. That term refers to, according to Wikipedia, a creative outlet that appears to be making a misguided attempt to generate new attention or publicity for something that was once widely popular. Jumping the shark is that term. Just that one episode of Happy Days, a phrase was born that helps classify other episodes that are so bad, besmirch good standing of that show. That's pretty severe. The writers are trying so hard to keep it relevant that they completely tarnish the lore that got them to be a celebrated show. This shit happens so much nowadays that you wait for it. I personally am just waiting for it. I'm waiting for the moment where things get awkward. I watched Nick at Night, which was on Nickelodeon, and past about 8 o'clock, they would do reruns of other classic television shows. That's where I saw Happy Days. Gilligans Island, My 3 Sons, The Patty Duke Show. I had a baseline of what works in a sitcom, in any type of show that you have a good chemistry of all the elements. Most of those shows, however, only ran for a certain number of seasons. They didn't run for 20 seasons. So I feel like I had that kind of in my mind from a young age. This was junior high age. I will say that I think network television has a lot to do with shark jumping. And if you fast forward a few years, I fell madly in love with the show My So-Called Life, starred Claire Danes and Jared Leto, who was the much fantasized and swooned over Jordan Catalano. Wilson Cruz played Ricky, who was one of the first openly gay characters to be portrayed in TV at that time. AJ Langer played Rayanne, who was kind of the live wire best friend to Angela Chase's Wallflower. If you were a teenager at that age, Angela was speaking to your soul. Even if you were an extroverted person, Angela was like your private moment, teenage time. That show got canceled 4 seasons in. It was kind of cliffhangery, even though there was a lot of critical acclaim for it and it was really had a cult following. It got canceled because the ratings weren't big enough. In my mind, that's kind of a good thing. Had it stayed for 15 to 20 seasons, it might not have rarefied space in my heart. Friends is another good example. Don't come for me, just listen to what I have to say, okay? I know people love Friends, like psychotically love Friends, and that's okay. I get it. I was one of those people. I had the soundtrack. I recorded episodes on my little VCR when I couldn't watch them. Like, I was there too. However, right around Monica and Chandler's wedding, I was over it. I think that would have been a great place to stop it, but they didn't. It seemed like all of the characters who were once like fun, goofy, quirky, they all had their own quirks, but they all had their own integrity too, and they like loved each other above all else, took care of each other. It seemed like that went out the window. They were kind of bitter and kind of angry about the way that their lives had gone, maybe. I don't know. It turned a corner. Joey, however, is the only character that had the same integrity, in my opinion. I mean, he's the only one that got a spinoff, which I thought was great, but did not do well because they wanted another Friends. Just to kind of tie this all in, Friends won 6 Emmys. I don't personally see Emmy-type performances. Maybe some of the writing, because it was clever, but like, why was that show so celebrated when, had it not won Emmys, had it not been everyone wearing the Rachel haircut and the Chandler-isms, that type of cadence, if those things, which were all choices of creative people that then were kind of grabbed onto and made money off of by Suits, corporate Suits, had that not been the case, I don't think that show would have been as celebrated. So you just have to wonder which came first, like the hype or the actual show in some cases like that. It's still a good show. They're all talented people. I think they had great cast chemistry. I just don't know if it's quite the show that we are remembering it as. In my mind, at least the first probably 4 or 5 seasons were my favorite, and then it got a little muddled. And there's a reason for that, and it's not always who you think it is to blame for that type of thing. So when a show is popular, there's a lot of pressure. All of a sudden it has potential. Euphoria is a great example. There's all this pressure put on because marketing, spin-offs, brand deals, like there's all kinds of money to be made off of that particular show. They're not taking into account, however, why would they, the creative process that it took to make that show in the first place. A lot of these episodic shows are an idea or a concept. Maybe it's even like a movie idea that they just break down and kind of chop up into an episodic. Where the money's at these days. Let's say it took 10 years to come up with that really, really good script or good idea or good dialogue or whatever it is. Now that it's popular, you're saying, oh no, we need a season 2, we need a season 3, we need a season 4. And you're rushing all of that inspired creative stuff. That's where people with the money and people managing, the machine around the creative, they don't understand the creative process. They don't understand that without that creative process, you ain't gonna make that money anymore. The first 2 seasons of the show Dexter, Michael C. Hall and Julie Benn, amazing characters, performances, plot lines, dialogue performances in the first 2 seasons. The 2 seasons come full circle. There's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a resolution that's hopeful but not cookie cutter. It's so good. And then the 3rd season, they came back because the first 2 were so wildly popular and caught on probably like mid-2nd season. I think that's when I heard everybody being like, oh, Dexter, Dexter, Dexter. I saw it from the first episode and was like, this is tremendous. 6 Feet Under, I was in love with that show. Of course, Michael C. Hall was in that one. So I just followed him right into that series. They jumped the shark for me when he became domesticated. I know that's the whole like double life thing, but it was more of a character-driven show, and that's where they all start. Then slowly over time, as popularity sets in, it becomes a situational comedy or a situational story, which is okay, but it's very predictable and it's very hard to have the same magic and the same chemistry if it's a totally different focus and a totally different way of being, in my opinion. Imagine if we had, instead of watching Dexter go for as long as he did, imagine after the 2nd, we come back in the 3rd, another character picking up where he left off, and we create the same magic and we have the similar brilliance, but it doesn't have to beat the original idea into the ground. A good example of that is across the pond in the UK. There's a series called Skins. Went for 7 seasons. The first season is my favorite, but I would say up the first 3. They have the first original cast, which is Nicholas Hoult. He's probably the most notable name to come out of that. An ensemble cast, and you follow the lives of different teenagers. Tremendously well written. Guerrilla cinema sometimes. You don't know if it's like real or not. Like, is this really happening? After that first season, they follow Effie, who is the younger sister of one of the main characters. If you're following me, they follow her. You get to have the same type of adventure, but with new characters that you get to learn to love. They're just continuing with that momentum, saying like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. That was all still there. The same show, the same vibe, but it didn't have to perform at such high levels. It already had. The biggest example for me, Bob's Burgers. The first 3 seasons of Bob's Burgers are our go-to show as a family. We'll just watch the first 3 seasons over and over, refer to them as Classic Bob's. There's a lot of other seasons. After the 3rd season, the 4th season gets kind of muddled and it's not as inspired, and it's kind of like set them up, knock them down, kind of similar stuff to the first 3 seasons. And then everything after that, season 5 through the current seasons, it's just like every other sitcom. From being character-driven, Linda, who's voiced by John Roberts, who is phenomenally talented, who check out his music if you haven't. He's amazing. He was discovered on YouTube, by the way. H. John Benjamin, who was in Dr. Katz and Home Movies. He was Coach McGurk. Gene, who is Eugene Merman, who is an amazing stand-up comedian. He was on Flight of the Conchords a little bit. Kristen Shaw, who she does tons of voiceover. She has a very distinct voice. She plays Louise. It's this amazing cast. Amazing cast. It went from it being all about the interplay of their weirdo, quirky, loving, supportive little family and their trials and tribulations, because they are the family that they are, character-driven, to it being where Bob and Linda just kind of tolerate each other. There's kind of cute, funny lines thrown out every once in a while, but it's not really like, it's a different laugh. It's just kind of like a, that's funny, as opposed to, oh my God, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard, kind of a laugh. Gene had always been kind of LGBTQIA leaning, and he would say things kind of gender fluid or of a bisexual nature, which was really cool because it was very subtle, but very, very much their representation. And that went out the window. Louise's kind of mad genius, kind of sociopath leanings went out the window. She was now the moral compass of the show, which is, it's not accurate according to like where the show started. It's not the same, and it's really sad. I will just rewatch those first 3 seasons over and over again because I've tried watching the later seasons. It breaks my heart. It's not the same. The characters don't do what they used to do, which is what made me love it in the first place. It is no offense to those amazing actors and creative people. It's a tremendous amount of work to do an animated series. It's not that. I believe it's the machine around it, as I said before. The shows that are aware of this and that do the best combating it, I would say a show like Fleabag. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who wrote it, partially produced it. It was a stage play first, but she took it from being a stage production to being an amazing, well-made, well-produced TV series for Amazon. Amazon's the streaming service. And she knew that she only wanted to do the one, and then they were like, ooh, can you do a 2? Can you do a second one? Can you do a second one? And she was like, okay, but just give me a minute. And she was able to do a second series. By themselves, they are completely, like, if you just watch the first series, you'd be fine if you just watched the second one, but if you put them together, she made a masterpiece. And she stopped. I'm sure they threw a lot of money at her and were like, please make a 3rd season, please make a 3rd season, because it was so popular and so good. And she was just like, no, thank you. And that's what I'm talking about, that artistic integrity. I know that it's better to be getting paid to do something you love than not. And I think it's a really fucking dirty trick that so many people with power or that are employing these creative people, they will dangle unemployment or, back to obscurity over their heads when they're the talent. The creative people are the talent. Like I was saying, like, this isn't aimed at the creative people. This is aimed at the people who can make a big difference by knowing their audience, by having loyalty to the people who got them there. And I know that in this fickle kind of moment to moment, kind of hyper, moving really quickly, churning out good things, otherwise you lose someone's attention span. Like, I get all that. I do think that they just don't know what they're missing by needing something so fast. If you slow it down and demand and just kind of put the brakes on and say, no, for the integrity of this show, we're going to need 5 months, 6 months, we're going to need a year to make the season 2, and it'll be worth it, I promise. That's what needs to happen. I would encourage creative people to just kind of diversify and just have a lot of different things going on. That way, if something does kind of go south with something you had been working on that's kind of commercially successful, you have other things that you can go work on that may turn into something successful, that you don't have to sell your soul and you don't have to be really shackled to something that is compromising you artistically. These criticisms aren't because I'm angry about it. It's I love all of the series that are my favorite series and all of the potential series. It's out of love and it's out of frustration that I'm saying these things. I just went off for a long time and I just gotta. So in the age of streaming, I would say just go for a limited series first and then see where that lands. Have the gap of time to create something that is worthy of a continuation of that story. Any story arc, anyone that's worth a damn, it takes a minute. It takes a long time, but it certainly doesn't help if you're under the gun and you have to churn out creative stuff on command. That's a really big challenge, and it's hard to do it well and keep your fans with you. But in my opinion, it's so much better to complete something at the peak of its popularity. That way it doesn't kind of go back down and slide into, it's not that great, it used to be better territory. Creatively, that's worse than never having a chance to tell your story. For the executives that are making these decisions, and I know you don't have an easy job because you have to be the middleman between the upper management and then, the talent, and so it's a tough place to be, like a showrunner or a producer. I would just suggest being around people that challenge your word and challenge the word of the studio. Be moldable to go to bat for your creative team rather than cave to the executives, because the creative team is the one that's making you all that money. And in the age of the internet, you can do a lot of stuff and showcase your talent online. Find other people, find a community of people that will work with you and that believe in your vision as an artist, rather than just trying to take from you and not give anything back. At the end of the day, the diehard fans, the ones that were there from episode 1, the ones that buy first run merch, the ones that spread all the good word by word of mouth to other people. Oh my God, you gotta see this show, it's so great. The ones that get the buzz generated, the ones at the beginning of that big tidal wave of success. Those people are your first investors. If you are only ever catering to the people at the top of the crest, like here's the wave. And so these people down here that started it all, if you're never considering them, once you get to the top, that'll be your run. Even if it continues to be watched, even if it continues to be successful commercially or whatever, it's not going to have the same following. The trend folks are cool and they're big in numbers, but they will always be looking for the next big show. They're not going to show up at a convention and have you sign something really personal and pour their heart out to you and let you know why this show means so much to them. They probably won't do that. They might. For you to only be catering to the trendy people, the people who get the numbers up, that's where things will turn, and you won't be making the money that you were making or getting the attention that you were getting before. Us loyal fans, we're the ones that keep the conversation going or start the conversation when no one else does. The trendy people, they say that it's good for it to be part of the conversation, but they can't tell you why. They can't say, ooh, I love that lighting design is really good in the way that it showcases this and this. And I love this location that they shot at. That's really the lifeblood of any episodic or any movie or anything, is that deep connection to people and that deep connection to history, because you are making history with everything that you make. Please don't turn on the people that were there from the ground up. We were your first investors and we deserve the most return on that investment. The other ones, yes, they deserve return too, but they weren't there at the ground level like we were, if you ask me. And having said that, I absolutely cannot thank you creative geniuses out there enough. The life that you have given to these projects that have shaped me as a human being, that have and will always continue in my mind and in my heart. You keep all of us sane. You keep humanity sane by giving so much of yourself, by being creative, by telling beautiful, moving stories. The real fans that really, really, really appreciate it and really feel it deeply. We try to return that favor with our attention, with our viewership, with our applause, with our deep feels about all of it, and our support, even when maybe it goes a little sideways for whatever reason. I am endlessly, endlessly thankful. I look forward to the next amazing series, and I hope that there is balance and that we can meet in the middle. Know when to bow out gracefully. Maybe use the same crew, the same cast in a different formation, and create another amazing story. I think that would be the best strategy. Cheers to all that. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribe, sharing if you are feeling it. Let me know, what are your favorites? What shows do you feel were major shark jumpers? Which ones do you feel like are still nailing it after all these years, kind of a thing? Let me know. I would love to hear it. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one.